All right, you guys, we're here in 10th Planet Pasadena. I'm joined by Professor Compella. Professor, thank you so much for taking the time. We're good, thank you.
Yes.
We're about to get into it here. I'm very excited to have a chat and learn a little bit about your journey, a little bit about 10th Planet Pasadena, the story. As usual, you guys, if you like the content that we're putting through on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave a comment, subscribe. Even if you don't like what we're doing, it all helps. Kind of, encouraging jiu-jitsu content and telling jiu-jitsu stories, which is really, I think, what the idea is all about. So, yeah, without any further ado, let's get started.
Yeah.
Nice. So, Professor Compella, I was fortunate enough to meet you through a mutual friend at this point, Andrew, Coach Andrew from 10th Planet Murrieta.
Andrew Murillo.
Yeah, he's putting on a competition here. And so beforehand, I was like, you know what, you're going to be in Pasadena, I'll meet you here. And I reached out to you and I said, is it okay if I come train? And had a great time. So I was very, 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 very happy to get to know the space a little bit. But I have to admit, I don't actually know you all that well, right? Yep. So as customary, I'm always curious about what got people that I talk to into jiu-jitsu and what made it so that you're like, you know what, I'm signing up, I gotta do this.
Kind of similar to what a lot of people who dabble in martial arts early on gravitate toward, the finality and the intricacy of jiu-jitsu, as opposed to, taekwondo or boxing or kickboxing, which, if you really get into the weeds of it, there's some sweet science in there too, but jiu-jitsu is just so many different moves and combinations. And, of course, once, the Gracie family established the dominance of jiu-jitsu in the UFC in the early 90s, it was pretty apparent what the sort of goal of combat was going to end up being. You had to have Brazilian jiu-jitsu to be a complete fighter. Some kind of stand-up. We saw, boxing and Muay Thai, of course, like rise to the top.
Yeah.
When people are actively comparing all styles, and then having a good takedown, either wrestling or judo, some kind of base, and then ultimately having good jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
It was so way ahead of everybody at the time. It was like a superpower, being able to withstand and have the cardio to do jiu-jitsu on your back and sub people. And then after a while, once people started getting beginner, intermediate levels of jiu-jitsu, that's when the game started to change. And you started to see like evolution, stylistically, particularly MMA, because you're shirtless now, you're not wearing a gi.
Yeah.
And hence, why 10th Planet started coming along right around that time. So, my initial entry, I did Taekwondo as a kid. I did some boxing and kickboxing over with Benny Arquidez in North Hollywood. I was probably like 15 at the time in high school. And then I had a buddy of mine who introduced me to the Muay Thai Academy over in North Hollywood. So at that point, I was more, I was focused on stand-up, striking, do a little, some amateur kickboxing matches, but I hadn't really dabbled with grappling yet. And then it wasn't until I was at UC Santa Cruz where I took this quantum jiu-jitsu class, it was called. It was in the gi, it had some yoga stuff to it, but it had some, the skeleton of it was Brazilian jiu-jitsu, essentially.
Okay.
Positioning, you were doing full mount, you were doing, back takes, choke submissions, arm bars, all that good stuff. So that was like the first taste of it while I was on campus there, and I started kind of gravitating more toward that. And then I found, a JKD instructor, Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee style, who was just happened to be on campus at the same college what I was. He was living in the dorms, older dude, and he had a small group of people. One guy was a capoeira guy, one guy was like a wrestler guy. I was like the jiu-jitsu guy. We would all train. We got the big gloves on, the big Kempo gloves. We get the sticks out, and we do a little bit of everything: boxing, kickboxing, stick work, ground stuff, and it really helped me sort of see where the strengths and weaknesses of every style was, and then just kind of open up my paradigm of what martial arts, could be, and knowing to play toward your physiological strengths and weaknesses. Right. Are you lanky? Are you very dense and short? Are you, so what what are you going to work with? And that's kind of essentially what Bruce Lee was trying to get out to the world, was like, you know, work within your limits, but also start extending your limits little by little.
Right.
You know, do the attribute training that makes those kicks work higher, work lower. Be efficient, be economical. We don't need all the flashy, necessarily extra kata and all that stuff, but you know, you gotta acquire data from real pressure sparring, and that's what separated, I think, the legitimate martial arts studios that continue to thrive to this day, and the styles that continue to thrive. People pay money to go train because they're pressure testing and sparring so often that, you know, it's legit. You know, so that's, you know, that's another big reason why, coming from my striking background, I love jiu-jitsu, because we get to spar 100%. And it felt like I was getting a good workout. I felt like, you know, I was really like learning something at the same time, and there was some finality to like getting a submission. Like, yeah, I got you. Like, you could trade punch with somebody and think, okay, I rocked you, you rocked me, whatever. But when there's a submission in play, you know, like, you got it. You know, that was it. That's a scoreboard. So yeah, I love that aspect of it, and especially, you know, training MMA. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it in Santa Cruz. And then once I moved, when I came back down to LA, I wanted to keep training jiu-jitsu, and then that's how I found Eddie at the Bomb Squad at the first school, and that was late 2004.
Okay.
First started with him.
Nice. Yeah. Really at the ground level with Eddie Bravo, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know that there was something different about 10th Planet at that time? Was there something different about 10th Planet at that time?
I didn't. It was so early on. So I was at the Muay Thai Academy, Hidden Bags, when Chris Riley, who was the owner of the Bomb Squad, he came in with his fighter there. We're kind of chatting a little bit. I was just in there, just hitting the bags on a random afternoon. He was like, yo, you should come check out our gym in Hollywood, this and that. If you're down there, I'm like, okay, yeah, I passed by. I'd actually seen it. You know, I was auditioning down there a lot of times. So I would pass by, and then one day I decided to stop in and check it out because they had a jiu-jitsu program. So I was interested. I wanted somewhere where I could do both. You know, I was kind of looking for like that next like MMA gym, and that didn't really exist in LA at the time. It was either Muay Thai or it was boxing or it was maybe jiu-jitsu, and it was only in the gi. So this no-gi jiu-jitsu style, which was perfect what I was already doing with the Jeet Kune Do stuff in Santa Cruz. I'm like, all right, this is cool. And then there was already MMA fighters there that were like starting to come up and use this new style of jiu-jitsu, you know, directly for MMA. So all that intrigued me about the gym and the space. You had great like hardcore Muay Thai talent there. You know, Chris Riley was like the first American to win the King's Cup in Thailand. Eddie Bravo was the first American to tap a Gracie in competition. Those were the taglines when you first got to the gym. You're like, okay, wow, it seems. And then you do a little history, do a little research, and you realize, oh, well, these guys are, you know, legit competition wise. Explanation wise, where their heart is in opening the gym and all that. And so, yeah, it started there, and a lot of good training and a lot of good opportunities. Random people come. I remember Randy Couture, right before he came back out of retirement to fight Tim Sylvia. No way. Right? Yeah. He came to the gym to train. He did some bag work. I think he might have worked with maybe like Rob Comment on some striking stuff. Like, there was just, like, at that point, the small world that was like the MMA celebrity world would be in and out of that. It was like one of the spots, you know? That's cool. And so Randy Couture, I was like, I knew who he was. Like, you have any cool like tips or tricks? He's like, oh yeah, sure. He brought me, took like 10 minutes to show me this head and arm technique that he does, like super high percentage, and he was super like welcoming, and I always remember that. Even though he was like a world famous fighter, he took the time to work with somebody who just asked an earnest question. And that always stuck with me. Like, as I get better and do that, always be that humble. And somebody asks for help, take the time and say, because they might be the next whomever. You know?
Absolutely. And I think that shone through my first impression of this place, and like we're gonna talk about 10th Planet Pasadena in a second, but I think, you know, it's not like you can call up Michael Jordan for a game of pickup, right? Like, he's got other stuff, he's got his friends, and I don't think that you can really get into that circle. But I, like, even just I went to the jiu-jitsu con for the first time, right, out in Vegas, and yeah, you know, arguably like the Shanjis, the Marcelos, the, you know what I mean? Like the big names, they're literally just like more than happy to chat with you. Yeah, they're busy, but like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's, oh, you want a picture? Sure. What's your name? Where you from? Blah, blah, blah. You know, like.
Yeah, to that point, when I visited Marcelo in New York, like 2-3 years ago, I've got to roll with him twice at his academy in New York.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can't do that in any other sport.
No.
You can't walk into an NFL field like, you know, can star quarterback throw me some passes.
Yeah, exactly.
At all. You got to work your way up just to be able to bring them water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in the jiu-jitsu world, you know, you can come in, most professors, you know, the ones that are super legit, they'll be there and roll with you just like anybody else, you know.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool that jiu-jitsu is that it's that transparent and that the truth and honesty about what happens during a roll has always probably made me gravitate toward jiu-jitsu the strongest. You know, I always felt like the people have pretty strong integrity, and there's no really way to lie or cheat your way through a round.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna get exposed.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to like, you know, keep yourself humble. As long as you keep challenging yourself, you stay humble. Because people, just like anything else, if you start limiting, you know, you start getting comfortable in your comfort zone, then
100%.
Then the arrogance starts to, the demons start coming for you.
That really resonates with me, actually, what you just said about you know, that integrity, and you do get to know somebody on a like an oddly tactical level when you're grappling with them, right? And like maybe they're nervous, maybe they're tired, maybe they're this and that, but the core is still present of their personality, right?
Totally.
And then it's I had never really considered that, to be honest.
Yeah. You learn a lot. I mean, you know, there's a lot you learn about being a human, being compassionate, but just also reading people's moods and stuff. You'll tell in a round when somebody gets frustrated. And it's one of those things, and at higher levels of combat, you can trade move for move, armbar escape, triangle escape. There's a mass and a sequence to that, but then there's also what's happening in between when they barely got out of that. And there was a look exchanged in between, maybe a little shit talk, and there's a little psychological weaving on that. That, you know, if you have a good mentality about it, and you're there for the culture and the vibe of getting better, stuff like that will just right off you. When you start taking stuff like that personally, or you're training for a fight and you don't like the fact that a lower belt tapped you or something like that, and it starts creating these insecurities, that's the kind of stuff you just got to get out of your system, you know, and just enjoy the role for what it is, and don't get upset. Something it took me a while, I want to say like till late brown belt. I didn't realize that I had to check my ego and realize that why would I get upset at a training partner for hitting a technique correctly? I'm the only person I should be upset about is my lack of understanding of how that technique was correctly hit. And so if I can take the time to check myself and understand that technique, it's not about them. I need to pat them on the back and congratulate them and be lucky that I have somebody who can show me that the fact there is a gap in that skill level, and you need to go and fill that, you know? So you really like, just a personal thing for everybody out there. You have that one brown belt at the gym that just kicks your ass. You're lucky to have somebody like that, because if you're at the top of the heap at your gym, you're not gonna get better. You're gonna get stagnant there. So having people that challenge you in different ways, that crazy guy with the guard who just inverts and throws leg locks up, great. That aspect of your game is gonna get good. That guy that gets on top and just smashes, nothing but shoulder pressure and head and arm, amazing for your survivability and your ability to like squirm out of stuff and recover guard. Like everybody brings something cool to that, and as long as you're receptive to it, and you're just like, I'm just gonna play my game and only win when I'm here, you're gonna get like 10% of what you could be getting 100% out of jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely. It's interesting what you said also about comfort zones, right? Because like, it's almost like it's always there, and it kind of sneaks up on you. And if you, like you said, if you are top dog at your gym, then you might be lulled into a false sense of security, right? Where you maybe even start thinking, hey, I'm the shit, you know what I mean? And then, well, then you come visit another school, and you know, you get a reality check.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like, some people won't take the risk of checking their reality.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're getting that good, if you're the best guy at your gym, you should be out there competing and representing for your gym.
Yeah.
Right? Where's the challenge at then? Yeah. Otherwise, you know. So I always try to put that in people's minds. Like there's always another step you can take it to if you want to. Yeah. If your focus is now on other aspects of your life, that's fine. I'm not gonna, you know, like, oh, you're a failure to the jiu-jitsu gods. Like, do what you need to do. I'm happy when people show up and train casually, competitively. However, I'm just here at this point now, you know, 20 years of doing jiu-jitsu, to curate an environment that's conducive to growth. That's my main thing. Nice. Whether it's just a little bit of self-confidence in the workplace, standing up to a bully as a kid in kid classes, or an adult who wants to take, they've been striking for a while and they know that there's this gap in their skill, you know, their skill set for MMA, and they want to get some, boom, I'm going to hyper inject you with the best 10th Planet shit I've had over the years and tell you exactly why it's going to work for MMA and what does and what doesn't. So I'm happy to pass on sort of the notes I've been taking along the way when it comes to all that, because it's pretty important, you know. You get to learn from people who have done it already. I know I learned a ton from everybody that came before me. So.
I really like that. I think, you know, you have this other aspect we were talking about, you know, Michael Jordan's and star quarterbacks and stuff. But then in jiu-jitsu, like 20 years is a long time. It's a long-term investment.
Looking back at it,
and it's a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of, you know, not to sound tacky, but blood, sweat, and tears, right? Literally. And I think that, like, sometimes I don't want to say that it might be lost on some people, but it's something that it's nice to, like, remember that side of it too. Like, hey, my teacher, my professor, my coach, my, you know, instructor has gone through all of this, and they're sharing this, which is your unique perspective, right? On all the things that you've learned, because, you know, you're presumably you're going to learn techniques that you learned, but you're also learning it through the Compella filter, right? Experience and personality. And
right. Like, I always loved the little anecdotes Eddie would throw in when he taught a technique that had a real personal story to it from competition. Oh, I did this on a guy in competition, and usually people do this reaction, and it worked because he did this reaction instead. And now I gauge these two reactions, and now I have this tactic to share with you guys. And that's one of those things you can't pick up a book and extract that. No, you have to live it, experience it, feel it, think about it, mull over it, you know, and then you finally come up with, and as a proficient instructor, Eddie's one of the best, I mean, you know, in my opinion, best jiu-jitsu instructor, but arguably, across the world, everybody will say he's at least top 5 jiu-jitsu instructors of all time. And, you know, yes, he's great at jiu-jitsu, but the communication skills, that's something that, you know, and we've done music together, so I'm going to be biased. We share that same passion for delivering information in an entertaining way. And so I picked up on that right away. I'm like, oh, this is fun. He's just fun to listen to, you know, and then he's going to give me good jiu-jitsu on top of that. Here you go.
There you go. Take my money.
Exactly. It was just win-win.
100%.
And then, you know, amongst other things, you know, good friends as far as like music and culturally living in Los Angeles. You know, all the right elements came together that, for me, curated an environment for success. You know, for my success as far as jiu-jitsu and just networking with people throughout the Planet system. I'm a Puerto Rican kid from the Bronx. You know, I'm born to be a statistic. Be on welfare or whatever. You know what I mean? If you don't do the right things to get out of there and expand. I was lucky enough to move to LA at a younger age. But, you know, you have to, like, just keep on expanding your world. And with jiu-jitsu, I was able to travel out to Japan to visit a friend and teach rubber guard at a little studio in Tokyo, at an Air Force base in Tokyo. I had another friend take me over there. In Amsterdam, teaching a seminar. My friend who I met at the bomb squad early on, Ralph Walkernick, shout out Ralph, 10th Planet Berlin, and go and, you know, teach and train over there with them in East Europe, in Spain and in Barcelona not too recently. My good friend Jose, who lives in Geneva, you know, runs 10th Planet in Switzerland, you know. So all these opportunities, all these people that just like you share this same passion for a sport, you meet somebody across the world, all of a sudden you're best friends.
Yeah.
You can talk about why lockdown is so cool.
Yeah.
Why you prefer rubber guard over this and that. This next fight coming up. Oh, their jiu-jitsu is kind of mediocre. Huh? If only they did this.
That's true.
So, you know, it's so, it's such a big world to be a part of, but also get to like humble yourself and remember where you're at in the scheme of things. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like inevitably, right? Because I'm 44, and inevitably a lot of the conversations that I've been having lately have been revolving around that fact, right? Because I'm still definitely feel young, and you know, thankful for the health and ability to train,
and not too many lingering injuries.
Exactly.
Years,
yeah. But also seeing that like it's only going in one direction. It's not going backwards, right? I can't actually turn back the clock.
Yeah, Father Time's undefeated.
Right, exactly. 100% submission rate. Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
exactly.
And then these kids are coming up, right? Kids. I mean, even 20-year-olds are kids at this point.
Oh, yeah, they're kids.
And phenomenal.
Under 25, you're a kid.
There you go. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
But like phenomenal jiu-jitsu, and if they're maybe they're athletically gifted, even if they're not. You know, I think it was Eddie Bravo who said, like, give me the nerds. I want all the nerds, right? But they're dedicated, they're training hard, they've got the time, and they've got the youth. There's no reason why. And this was like a moment for me that I don't know if you felt a similar moment, but like all of a sudden it was okay that I was still going to give them a tough time, but if I didn't come out on top, I probably shouldn't come out on top, in fact, right? Because if they're training correctly and properly, they should be able to beat me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta know where you're at and what you're up to. If you're training competitively to win the next tournament at black belt, then you got to put it on them kids.
Yeah.
You got to let them know what time it is. But if that up and comer's got 20 pounds on you, is getting ready for his next MMA fight, and you're training once a week.
Yeah.
You don't need to fight that fucking takedown.
Yeah.
90% chance you're gonna get really injured trying to meet somebody at their level like that. So the thing is with your different training partners, same thing like when a bigger guy, say a 220-pound guy, has to roll with a 90-pound girl.
Yeah.
He's not gonna go. He has to work your technique. Mostly gonna be mostly on your back.
100%.
Doesn't mean you can't sweep her and get on top, but you're not gonna apply all your weight like you would rolling with your 185-pound black belt instructor.
Yeah,
it's a whole different role.
100%.
I expect you to use 100% of all your effort and everything against me, and I'm going to smile through it and recover guard, and we're going to have a roll. But if you do that to a girl in class, you look and are a complete asshole.
Yeah.
So you should not be abusing your power like that. So you kind of know where you're at. And then it goes the other way, right? If you're that 90-pound girl and you're trying to like truck this dude and go through him, that's unrealistic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So play to your game and don't. Most injuries that happen at the gym, it's ego and lack of understanding of what's happening there. So it's so important. It's really up to the coach, the curator of the environment, to make sure like do the stuff that you're ready to do. And if you don't feel like hitting that blast double on the guy in the middle of class is comfortable for you yet, don't fucking do that. Just work on tying up and clinching and pull guard. It's okay, you're at 10th Planet. Now, disclaimer, I start every class on our feet. We do a version of a takedown every time, because I always, with my MMA background, self-defense wise, I'm not a fan of high five, butt scoot and scoot in, right? Get the takedown, work to get the takedown, get better at all aspects of your game. But as a 10th Planet practitioner, if the takedown doesn't go my way, best believe I'm going to have my game ready to go right there.
Sharp,
it just continues from there. So for me, I kind of went, most people go wrestler, takedown, figure out jiu-jitsu while you're down there. I was like, figure out all the jiu-jitsu and then figure out how to get down later, because I already had the striking. So for me, it's like, I can throw a high kick. If I fall, I'm playing jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So for me, the wrestling part of it wasn't as important as maybe somebody who's doing like professional grappling, where takedown and pin counts for points and stuff like that. You're a little bit different mentality there.
100%.
So that's super important. So I try to like make up for the stuff that I didn't put a ton of time into. Getting the right coaches, make sure I'm implementing what I know of it there, and then just giving everybody the full picture.
Nice. No, there's a lot to be said about that. I think, you bring up 10th Planet, and I can't help but wonder, like, when John Danaher went viral for saying, don't ignore 50% of the body. I wonder if you guys were always like, Yeah, bro. We've been on that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because 10th Planet.
Yeah, of course.
Well, actually, let me put this as a question, actually, because I don't know for a fact. We're like when you're in 2004, around the time where you started, like, were you guys actively pursuing leg locks at that time as well?
No, at that point, the only leg locks that were really being used were, straight ankle locks, knee bars, and the stuff that we employ from the truck system.
Okay.
Because from Eddie's backstory dealing with leg locks, from his trip from, white to black belt under Jean-Jacques, they were never that effective, and because heel hooks weren't allowed in gi competition to that point, they weren't really expanded on quite yet. So all the stuff that he had worked on from the 10th Planet system was from what we call the truck. And because they were just calf slicers and crotch rippers, banana splits, stuff that was a one-way street where the person on offense wasn't exposing their legs.
Yeah.
A lot of the early stuff was a bit of a leg lock shootout. Who can eat the ankle lock and not tap and then snap the other guys first?
Yeah.
Who can eat the toe hold, right? Who can and that's it's cool in like a backyard tough kind of way, but in a sophisticated martial arts technique. We're trying to teach people how to do this safely. That's not the best way to go about it.
Agreed.
Now high level competition, 200-pound black belts going at, fuck yeah, I want to see them add that extra layer of athleticism. But normally in the room for a class, there's no need to be like adding all that extra ripping power. Do the technique correctly, and you're gonna get everything you need out of it. And those, the guys that came in with the heavy aggressive wrestling style, getting caught with leg locks like they're stepping on landmines, or shoving their head in, getting triangle and guillotine. Eventually, they start to appreciate controlling the flow and slowing down a little bit. And I love to see that little click in there. When I see like one of my recent black belts, he's been a wrestler all his life, and we go to spar and he goes and shoots guard on me. I'm like, oh, look at you.
Nice.
Come full circle.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, he appreciates that aspect of the game now. Where the first 100%. Couple of years, that was not happening.
Yeah. Somewhere his original wrestling coach felt a pang in his
exactly.
Heart. Like,
what just happened? A little angel died next to him.
Oh, that's funny. No, you're right. It's interesting. Actually, I never considered, some of the positions that you cited, like, for example, the crotch ripper. Like, the person executing that submission really isn't in very much danger at all.
Yeah, and that's why Eddie designed it that way. He didn't want to see like the leg lock shootouts happening.
Yeah.
And so nothing was really. That was pretty much it for most of the leg lock stuff up to that point until EBI, the early EBIs, really like 4 or 5. Once Gary Tonin, Gordon Ryan, the whole Danaher Death Squad, before they started really blowing that up on the scene, people weren't doing cross-hashi and step back, those stuff yet. So that really just created a whole new sort of wave of technique that people had to adapt to, you know? And all of a sudden, you got these 10-year black belts getting caught by blue belts and heel hook.
100%.
Because they're putting, and then at that point, and it goes back to my other thing, don't get mad at the person. Get mad at the technique you didn't study. Okay? Because it doesn't matter, right? 10,000 hours on something is 10,000 hours on something.
100%.
Whether it's a wrist lock or a rear naked choke or body position or whatever it is. So, you got to respect the fact that somebody put in enough work to be able to get to those things. And eventually, right, how many years it take the IBJJF to allow heel hooks and advanced division? But it's
long time,
they're black belts. Of course, they should be able to do everything because they should be, first of all, secure and safe enough to not get caught by all the things that can happen in a fight. That's my understanding. If you're gonna be a complete martial artist, around the person on the street shouldn't be able to do an illegal move, and now your 10 years of experience means nothing.
Right. It's true. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
So you got to be prepared for that stuff. Yeah.
There's an anecdote that so George Brito is I think he's 4th degree black belt under Hoyler, right? And a number of teachers, I think the Hibero brothers and stuff. Anyways, he's out in Toronto. Great guy. Shout out George. He was telling me about a story that marked him. Like it was a speech. He was born and raised in Rio, so he's there while Leo Gracie's still around. But he's old at that point, right? He's telling a story, and he wanted to have these two guys demonstrate a technique, but do so in a combat setting. And one of the guys who was a legit black belt was like, "Not today, Professor. I'm sorry, I'm too tired." Like, you know. And then apparently, as the story goes, he lost his shit, right? Like he was just like, "So you're telling me that if you went outside to your car after today's training and somebody was threatening your family with a gun,
right?
Are you gonna be too tired? Are you gonna ask him for a proper warm up before you know what I'm saying?" And I was like, "Damn, that's savage, right?" But he does have a point. Right.
Yeah. I mean, also the the environment you're in. Like, they say, "Hey, we want to put on a demonstration." You're like, "Oh no, I'm good." Like,
yeah, no, definitely. But that's cool. So then, so 2004, the first EBI wasn't till a little bit later, though, right? That was like in 2014, or was
something like that. Yeah.
I don't know for I'll fact check it after.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. I remember we were at the. Actually, I probably have one of the flyers hung up in my office there, but we were at the Florentine Gardens in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, which I think is even shut down now. Like last time I drove by it, but we were very ambitious and did 2 full 16-person brackets in the same night, which, as we learned, by not finishing till like 2 in the morning when we started at 6 p.m. that was too much. We should do one bracket at a time, one weight division. But it was awesome to just like, DIY this competition. Jeff Glover came out for the very first one, his Wolverine outfit. Awesome showdown with Denny at the end there. So it was some good publicity and experimentation of seeing where we can take this sport and the rules, right? The overtime, that was the biggest part of it. That's what really set the thing apart. We're trying to how can we love jiu-jitsu so much, how do we make it more interesting to watch? How do we reach more people, right? Not necessarily to get more people, let's get people signed up at our gym. And it's like, let's get more people interested in jiu-jitsu so that everybody understands the applications of it and can have the self-defense confidence, but also just enjoy watching it, have a more sophisticated view of MMA when they watch it and stuff too. So having that rule change to make it more exciting with the overtime, I think was revolutionary, really, right?
Yeah.
It made sense, and it gave a definitive winner, because then you have these, you never leave it to the judges, right? Never leave it to the ref. They always say that. And with the EBI-OT rules, it gave you a definitive one or the other. It gave you a chance to play your overtime last inning thing you want to do. And if you still want to just lag, well, that you'll get what you get out of it.
So submission only for a certain period of time, like 10 minutes or something like that, or 6 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And then if it was a draw at that point, there was no submissions. It would go into like, I think 3 overtime periods, right?
Like baseball innings, right? Where there was a top and a bottom to each one. Everybody, first it's a coin toss, who gets it first, and eventually that evolved into, because people were starting to stall out the entire regulation just to get to overtime. So it evolved from the coin toss of the randomness of whoever the ref decided was dominating the regulation, got to pick their first position.
Okay.
A little more rewarding for actually putting in the effort early on. And also the incentive was, if you got to overtime, you're not getting paid for EBI. So the prize money was only if you got a submission in regulation.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
So that was like, you need to go out and get it. There's going to be a final winner, because we don't want anybody to feel cheated by a ref or a judge deciding something.
100%,
But if you want to earn the money and really promote this sport so people want to watch it, you have to be excited. You have to try to finish in the regulation. If you're doing that, people are going to come back. And then even the guys that weren't necessarily successful, maybe they got heel hooked in the last 10 seconds or something, but they put on a good fight, they were exciting, they come back.
100%.
They get invited back, and they can use that, even just the footage from that to help blow up their school wherever they're at, teach seminars, and maybe run their own tournament and get inspired for that. And that helps the entire community. How many EBI, OT, submission only tournaments are there now? Right? Dozens.
Way more than there used to be.
Way more, right?
Yeah. Well, PGF comes to mind.
They're
as
coming
an
here
example,
soon.
Right? Yeah, awesome. That's really cool. I think it's interesting to me that you said, let's get more people interested in watching this,
right?
Because we were talking before as setting up, right, about CJI, for example, which was 2 days this time, and the second installment, I guess it was 2 days the first time too, but the second installment didn't have what the first installment had in ways of like, a lot of the matches weren't as exciting as you might expect. The team format.
The team format, yeah. That was the biggest thing. Yeah.
I think it probably didn't work as they expected it might.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As a result, you referenced stalling. Like in the team matches, there was a number of occasions where one guy managed to win twice, so the team had an advantage, and then they just fought to not lose that advantage, right, for the rest of the.
And that's the problem with the team format strategy. Is sometimes it promotes stalling.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You have to. Engineer the rules so that you avoid that at all times. And sometimes just trial and error.
Yeah.
You don't really see it. You tell everybody, hey guys, in the warm-up area before, everybody has to go for it, right? We got to make this, And then when it comes to that moment where it's like, I might lose. They just default. It's a different, it's a whole different sensation there.
100%.
So, that's a personal choice. That's going to be your legacy. Are you the guy that went out there and went for it every time? Or did you start like, climbing up at the last second just to not lose?
That's funny. Yeah, the onus. I can't. Like, I keep going back and forth. Like in some cases, I think the onus is really on the athlete to give their best, and then on the other hand, it is the organizers and the rule set to as you say, engineer, right, the best possible environment.
Yeah, because the athlete's going to want to win no matter what. So if there's a way to finagle in between, somebody's going to gravitate toward that cheat code, that exploit, and they're going to use it. They're going to use it until it gets, shut off.
Totally.
So, and that's part of like being taking a unique approach to the situation. You found a new strategy that works. Well, all right. Well, I guess nobody thought of it yet, and you're getting success out of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of like how leg locks were for a while. People were like, "Oh, there's a huge skill gap in this. We've got 1,000 hours ahead of everybody. Let's take advantage of this." And you saw them take advantage, and then you saw after a couple of EBIs, it start to level out. And all of a sudden, people weren't getting honey-holed and trying to escape by just bridging through and extending their leg and giving up the heel hook. They started to turn. They started to frame. They started to escape their knee lines. And they started to counterattack. And that's when stuff really got interesting. And you had to. Now it wasn't just this guy's got the nuke, and he's just, whenever he wants to press the button, that guy's done. It wasn't, then it started to like, and then, this guy's got a nuke too. They're saving him. And then you get two good leg lockers who understand how dangerous. They were not trying to leg lock each other at all. Now it's a wrestling match.
All of a sudden it's a wrestling match, I was going to say.
Exactly. Right? Just like UFC grapplers, right?
That was always less
boxing.
That was always less fun for me, though. When two guys with mediocre striking decided it's a boxing match, you're like, but you're such good wrestlers. You know what I mean?
It's a little painful for the audience to watch because there are better strikers out there watching.
Yeah, exactly. Like an Anderson.
But for them, they're working hard. Like, I know my striking's not that good, but I can knock you out.
Exactly.
I mean? And sometimes it gets interesting, and then eventually they'll go back to their wheelhouse and start grappling again. But those are interesting. It's interesting how trying to stay away from your opponent's strengths can sometimes force you to play some of the weakest parts of your game, hoping to get an advantage there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess that's the moment at which you have to, as an athlete, you're deciding almost on the fly, I would assume, right? Like, am I
quick adjustment to the
like, am I fighting to win, or am I fighting to not lose? And then seems like the latter is like a surefire way to lose, but if it's strategically sound, then like there is no scenario and I'm never going to compete against you, thankfully. But there would be, if I did, there would be no scenario in which I'd be like, I'm going to go into the truck because I think this is a good idea.
Like statistically, I would not say you're going to have the best percentages there because I will have 10,000 hours there, and you got 100 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But if we're standing up in the gi and you're doing certain things and you've got 1,000 hours there and I've got 10 hours there, guess who's going to get it 9 times out of 10? You, of course.
So anecdotally, following a class that I did with you here, I did spam the truck on unsuspecting friends.
That's what we went over that day, right?
Yeah, absolutely, And then with the gi, there's a few additional grips there that I was taking advantage of.
It almost feels like cheating.
It does.
When you do 10 Planet stuff with the gi, you have all these extra things you could grab on.
It
almost feels like cheating. When you're used to like having to hold on to an overhook or a collar tie, and it might break apart, it might not. I just got my leg in place to control this posture. posture. Whew, I made it. It's like climbing a mountain.
Yeah.
It came in time, he could slide down.
Yeah.
And then you have the gi, and you're like, oh, look, I have this rope right here.
Yeah.
It's just connecting me.
It's around his neck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or the feeling that I get whenever I dive for an ankle and then they inevitably grab the lapel and I'm hunched over like this, so I can't finish.
Yeah.
I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah, like this was a good idea. Like 5 seconds ago.
5 seconds ago, exactly.
Yeah.
That's nice. So going through your kind of like journey, right? Your 10th Planet journey, you did you fight actively in MMA as well?
Yeah, like some amateur MMA fights.
Yeah.
That was, and mostly because I was just training jujitsu and doing music with Eddie on the side. I liked the competition of just because you can do 3 or 4 fights a day, different body types and stuff to work with. The thrill of those brackets was appealing to me, as opposed to like striking matches. Like you got to set up with a promoter and you're just fighting that one guy that one day.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was more fun, overall. And you could just sign up at these random tournaments that are all over. You just sign up and weigh in and show up. I'm like, oh, cool. So that was like a whole new world to explore. So yeah, that was fun. Getting to like just jump into competition and you get better. You get to you don't have to wait for someone else's pace.
Right.
You know what I mean, you can jump in and just start getting better right away, man, and see where you're at. If you do well in the beginner division, I won all 3 matches. Yeah, go to intermediate next.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's, you don't sandbag and pat yourself on the back for doing good techniques against mediocre competition. That you got to take it to the next level. Can I catch that guy? That's it keeps it exciting for you. Like I said, like the comfort is like the enemy of progress.
100%. Did you have a sense that LA was this like mecca outside of Brazil of Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
No idea at the time.
Really?
Yeah. 2004. Yeah. The scope of the land of martial arts was like Sherdog. It was what I had.
Yeah, I remember Sherdog.
I'd be on an anonymous profile arguing with Tito Ortiz, and shit, back in the
Huntington Beach
2000s stuff. And that was, that's what we knew. And then the couple of UFCs that we watched. And of course the Pride stuff. I mean, if you're a fan, you were watching Pride, you were watching King of the Cage, or whatever you can get your hands on to fill that. To fulfill that thirst for combat sports.
But then apart from, obviously there was Jean-Jacques Machado who was out here. The Machados in general were really propagating jiu-jitsu everywhere they could. But I think shortly thereafter, between when you started till now, like this explosion of jiu-jitsu on a global scale, to be fair. But it seems so like highly concentrated. Even if we just in Los Angeles,
SoCal,
right? Or Southern California, even better. And you referred to like you could just sign up for tournaments here and there. Like there's literally probably a tournament every weekend.
Close to, for sure, every month.
Yeah.
You can find somewhere to compete for sure, but maybe every weekend at this way, every other weekend, almost guaranteed. Yeah, you can find, maybe not in your area, but like you go up to NorCal a little bit. Yeah. You go down, like there's play like, between from San Francisco to San Diego. Yeah, you could probably find something every week.
Yeah. So, I mean, did you, at any point in time where you're like, man, this is way bigger than I thought it was going to be?
I was inside of it as it was growing, so I didn't notice it like that.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? Because I was just so deep in it with Eddie, creating stuff. And when he would have an idea to do a thing, I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, that is going to help expand it. Yeah, and then you just see the attention getting picked up by, when EBI got picked up when we're on UFC Fight Pass. Like, this is cool. This is the kind of attention this sport needs, because we just love seeing no gi. We knew how cool it was. It was like the professional wrestling we grew up watching, but like real shit. So this is what we've always wanted.
Absolutely.
And so to us, it was like a no-brainer that this would, catch on and people would like to see it.
That makes sense. It's interesting. I've yet to see an actual Boston crab successfully used in competition, although I'm sure it's possible. But that being said, now somebody's going to throw it up.
Yeah, I'm going to say, if it hasn't been done in the PGF yet, that's like somebody's going to get headhunted for that or something. There's a lot of, in the PGF stuff that Brandon McCaffrey throws on.
Who's also 10th Planet.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Longtime friend of mine, 10th Planet Decatur.
Nice.
and a longtime Pro Jam fan. We're both
Okay.
Eddie
All right.
Vedder.
There you go.
Loyalists. You know, a lot of talent on there, man, and doing a good job of canvassing some of the other talent that people might not know about, and giving those guys a proper platform to blow up on, and then they get, you know, you picked up for other stuff. You can go over to Polaris, EBI, UFC, BJJ, you know, and there's starting to be more opportunities for young athletes. Well, before it was like, you do enough jiu-jitsu to hopefully get into some kind of MMA promotion.
Right,
that was it. You know, it really wasn't. Or you're teaching and doing seminars.
Yeah.
And you're just winning championships and playing that route. Yeah. So it's just more opportunity for people to do, you know, exciting athletic things with jiu-jitsu and promote themselves, their school. You know.
There's always for me at least, there's always like this little moment of like, whenever you hear like your favorite jiu-jitsu athlete is going to MMA, you're like, I mean, that means that I won't see you on the circuit anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you want them to, you know, obviously do what their heart.
I see it. I guess I would be excited when they're going over, because I want to. Well, I guess it's two parts. It's half of it is like, fuck, I hope they've been working on their striking. That's always number one, because I want to see them succeed,
of
right?
Course,
and then it's like, well, if they do A, B, and C, and they work their ground game, man, it's going to be really tough for anyone to deal with them.
True enough.
So like, you know, the Crone Gracies, the Ryan Halls, you see your jiu-jitsu. These, you know, they're super good at jiu-jitsu, and can they make that transition? Gary Tonin, you know, he did he pretty well for himself over time, and then, you know,
Charles Oliveira.
Charles Oliveira. Yeah, a lot of these guys that translate over, and the jiu-jitsu is right there, and then it's interesting to see the strategic implementation that they make. Fabricio Verdun. When you know what he would do differently, he's throwing fucking head kicks and shit.
I know, it's just like jumping, flying.
You're like, okay, you know, that's cool and interesting to see that he's not afraid to expand his skill set, not just expand it, but really perfect it and get good enough to knock out another professional fighter who's been training, who's had a 3-month camp getting ready for this too. That's legit. It's inspiring, right? To see somebody who, like, they already put 10 years in this grueling thing. They're not going to sit on their laurels. They're going to go where, like, that's cool, you know, especially like that, guys in their 40s, you look back, you know, and when Randy Couture won the championship at 45, wherever he was, you know, he was already older there. But it also gave me some perspective on, like, wow, like, a lot of these techniques, if you're efficient and you're smart about it, it can be timeless, and you can really extend the timeline on what you're capable of doing, and you know, hang with these younger, stronger guys because of, you know, the science of jiu-jitsu. Experience makes a big difference. So.
I mean, like you referred to pressure testing earlier on, right? And it really is. And to me, it's really nice that I don't need to get punched in the head in order to, like, pressure test.
Sure.
This is not getting any better. And this is, you know, as good as it gets. And then the head trauma obviously is something I don't want to ever deal with. So. You know what I mean? Like, I got a big head, it's a big target. I'm sure that, you know, I get clocked a few times until I get the hang of it, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's, you know, again, that's having the right environment. You know, you should only be sparring with people that have control. You should never be leaving a sparring striking session and your head is throbbing and you have concussion happening. That should only be happening if you got your gear on and you're fighting with other people and you're getting ready for a fight. That's during your fight camp where you get those hard rounds in, because you need to know how to get hit. You do not want to be in a fight and get hit the hardest you've ever been up to that point. And now you have to deal with the middle of a fight. Now you don't want that. You want to be like, boom, oh, that reminds me of those 2 or 3 times I got hit in fight camp. Single leg, breathe, recover, get your shit back together, dance around a little bit, jab, jab, move. And know you got to have a recovery process. You know. So that's super important that you figure that out. And that's really, like, that's only been, I want to say, like, the last 10, 15 years of hardcore MMA sparring dying down and understanding that these guys' chins have a limited amount. Exactly. The shelf life is not long on that. And you don't want to be breaking bones in your face during live sparring and then have a professional fight later. You're trying to earn a purse to feed your family with. You got to preserve what you have there. So there's good ways to get strong work in, but you got to have good partners you trust. And you got to know, like, you can throw hard, but I'm not trying to crack leave a lingering injury that's going to prevent them from competing successfully in a few weeks. You know, so there's a few. I remember like when I used to train with like Dan Hardy back in the day. You come in,
I remember Dan
and we're
Hardy,
both purple belts at the same time. And man, we would get some hard training sessions, but never did I feel like I was going to get hurt.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And likewise. And that's why we would always like, we'd be sweaty, we'd be a little bruised or whatever, and we look at you like, fuck, yeah, it was a good session, you know?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
You know, we go in.
Yeah.
I maybe sometimes felt like I might get hurt, but we were both training for MMA fights at the time, so it was cool. Like we were both like, okay, you want to go, yeah, let's go, you know. And then we'd be trading darts and doing stuff, and it was just fun but the thing, it was still respect there.
Yeah.
You know, there was still respect. I wouldn't if I knew like I had an opening on something, I'm not gonna spaz out on it. And the same thing for him. If he had something isolated, he wouldn't spaz. He'll take his time and you gonna tap? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna tap. You know what I mean? Like you still have that respect for your training partner because you want to be healthy enough to do some more rounds tomorrow.
100%.
Next week.
Yeah, and that's your livelihood as well. Like at that point, right? I think when you get to that elite level, preserving what as you just described, you know, the integrity of the practice. Doesn't mean that you're not going hard. You know?
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's not an excellent training session, but it does mean that you're not concussed when you walk.
Yeah, you got to temper the intensity and just understand like what's at stake. And the more experience you have, the more you don't conflate going hard with going reckless.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I've seen a couple videos. They're old now, probably but around like 2007, 8, training in Brazil, and they were just wars. Absolute wars. And I'm sure it's not just Brazil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I'm looking at this like they've already had their title fight. Like that was right then and there in the sparring session, right?
Yeah.
And I get it, like, you know, some tempers might flare, somebody might do something that's perceived as one way when it really was something else.
Right.
Any number of things can happen, right?
Ego mostly, yeah.
100%. But no, I like and I find I tend to gravitate towards people that I like. My best roles are oftentimes with people that are far more advanced than me. Because I feel I know that I'm safe. They know that they're safe with me, so I open up.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
that's how you learn.
Yeah.
If you're not opening up, you're not getting the data acquisition that's required to upgrade the skill set. You're going to keep working on my jiu-jitsu 1.0.
Yeah.
This dude's on version 3.5 over here. You got to do
You're
something.
on floppy disk.
You got to hit that update button.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hit what's hitting the update button.
Yeah.
Listen in class. Drill slowly.
Yeah.
Let your partner work so that you can get an understanding of both sides of the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Work both sides of the technique. Understand it in such a way that you can explain it back to somebody. And ultimately, right, that's the best part of teaching.
Yeah.
Is you're actually learning a lot more because you're able to tell the technique forward and backwards,
100%.
Troubleshoot things that can happen. You know, when people ask questions, there's always the meme of like, you know, the student asking a question is like, just do the technique.
Yeah.
But I love stupid questions because there are no stupid questions because 3 other people wanted to ask that question. They just didn't want to be embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
So I love when somebody doesn't care, like, hey, wait, what? I don't know, this might seem weird, but what does that mean? Like, not weird at all. I'm glad you asked that question because I didn't really touch on that when I said the technique. But good on you.
Right.
This is why we do this, so that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And then everybody gets a better understanding. So, you know, you gotta. That came like experience as a teacher.
Yeah.
You know, you learn to like, instead of getting pissed off that somebody's like questioning what you're teaching, it's such an ego dumb thing.
Very
like you go, that's an opportunity. To expand further and actually help me teach better.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I don't know if this has probably happened to you like a long time ago, but for me it was relatively recently, where, you know, like I show a series of techniques and 1 or 2 at most, and then it's the time for the students to practice it, to implement it, right? And it's not live sparring yet; it's just trying out the technique, and then as soon as they start, I realize, oh, there are 2 or 3 things I should have said. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, hold on, guys, hold on.
Oh, that'll happen all the time. Well, I'll notice everybody making the same mistake on something, right? For example, like I was teaching flyover passes last week, and people were elevating their hips, but they weren't dynamically switching their hips in midair to land and judo side correctly, therefore being able to disengage the person's butterflies.
Right.
Sticky, right? So just a little detail like that.
Yeah.
Like instead of a hurdle with your legs and hips, more of a dynamic switch.
Nice.
And so once, I noticed like, okay, everybody's kind of having trouble here. Let's focus on this detail. I need up and I need out, and I want it to look like this. And then once you start really, and then you got to be okay with hammering people on it. Like, no, that's not. Kind of getting there, but you're not there yet.
Yeah.
And then when they finally do get it, you're like, bam, that's it.
100%.
It feels so good for me to see that.
Yeah.
And of course, as a student, because I was a student, too, I love to hear that from a friend.
100%.
Oh, you nailed it.
Yeah.
I did, didn't I?
Exactly.
And you saw it. Because most time we're pretending like we didn't see shit. Like,
100%. 100%.
Oh, yeah, that was good. That's good.
Yeah.
Kind of can't blow their ego up too much early on.
Yeah.
But, when people are like kind of struggling with a technique and they finally like understand it and you see them smoothly hit it, it's like, there you go. Like and the fact that you went through that trouble to get there, that experience is gold, because you can apply that to every other technique you're going to have trouble with.
100%. Absolutely. I like that. Yeah. So in your trajectory, at some point, combat jiu-jitsu became a thing, right? How did that come about, and like what made you want to get involved? Obviously, you were already like, interested and as you mentioned, fighting MMA, right?
Right. Yeah, I'd already done over the 2 or 3 amateur, MMA bouts, like a local promotion here in Los Angeles. And for me, I was doing MMA at this point. I'd gone to acting school, and my main thing was like, I'm going to audition, do some acting, some music on the side. And MMA was just like my way of staying in shape. And jiu-jitsu, like, give me something for my brain to work on that I don't have to wait for somebody else to do. I can push my own pace with this. And then MMA just kind of came about with other people at the gym who were getting ready for an MMA fight. They're getting ready, and now the pro team is doing their fight, the amateur team, and then you just kind of like, and then I'm sparring partner with these guys, and then like, well, I might as well sign up for this next fight and cut weight, and then you just kind of like get wrapped up in the culture of it. So I was just doing it more so out of love for my jiu-jitsu and wanting to prove that my 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu style is effective in a cage.
Nice.
And how effective it can be. All my amateur MMA fights were all, except for the one that I lost, but it was amateur. It was a first round submission.
Yeah. Nice.
I would finish it in the first round submission, because that's what I'm there to do. I don't want to drag it out. I'm trying to get in there and finish the fight, even if I take some risk to get there. And then even in the one where, it gets drawn out, I remember almost getting submitted and toughing out, and then ending up, getting to a decision by the end. But even that for me, because I knew at that point I was up against a tougher opponent. Yeah. And I still felt good about how my jiu-jitsu held up.
Nice.
Through a 3-round war. And even though you lose and you feel beat up, you got some bruises on your face or whatever, you can still, like, if you can appreciate what you were able to do during the match and stuff, and look back at it kindly upon yourself, it's a great experience no matter what.
Yeah, man. Talk about like going through the forge, like going through the crucible, like I'm not particularly religious, but it's like you're like born through the flames of combat at that moment. Like it's epic.
It's the realest way. And I knew that eventually I'm probably gonna I was already teaching, actually, even as a blue belt. I had started teaching a little bit, like in Chatsworth at Majiro's gym. Just doing a little bit of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, and then I started at 10th Planet Silmar at one point. I was still just like a purple, maybe just turned brown. So I was already dabbling with teaching and doing privates, because I love sharing that information. I have good communication skills. So for me, it was like a no-brainer to help people. And then people would ask, like, oh, can you help me? And then Eddie saw the potential in me and like, oh, why don't you teach all the fundamentals classes, here, and you're 2 nights a week doing this and that. You become part of the staff, and you just understand just how like the gift you have for being able to teach people. That's an important thing, So it's so let me work on that, and instead of like waiting tables in between auditions, I'll teach privates. It's so much cooler and more interesting for me.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how that came about, being involved with the MMA gym, with the Legends MMA team, and with the 10th Planet HQ. Before it was HQ, there was no other affiliates. There was one other one in San Francisco. Maybe one other one in like Canada or something. It was like 2 or 3 at the time, and that was it. you know, and then they started expanding. I think what you mentioned earlier, as far as it becoming a worldwide phenomenon, more jiu-jitsu in the last like 20 years. Yeah, I watched it kind of expand from there. Like, oh, we got a new affiliate in London now, or there's a new one in South Africa. There's a couple in Australia. Those are one of the early ones. Shout out to Melbourne, Australia, and Frank Barca out of 10th Planet for life. He's been dedicated since the beginning. He's one of those guys who used to come down to the bomb squad.
Really? Yeah.
Early 2000s, fly all the way from Australia just to train. I mean, you want to talk about dedication?
Yeah, seriously.
That guy's freaking dedicated. And he loved it. He understood, because he had the mind for MMA, and he knew like where it was going. You see the evolution going. You're like, of course we have to train with no shirt on or no gi style. There's no grips. We have to make this translation in order to keep jiu-jitsu alive, to keep it viable in that circumstance. And
then at some point, like, the 10th Planet Network just exploded. I don't know if it was one exploded or several little ones, but like, because now I think, you know, anywhere that there is jiu-jitsu, is a very high likelihood that there's a 10th Planet around nearby.
Exactly. It became attractive to people that wanted to, like, people that enjoy like going for the kill, you know, and the fun, funky culture that was around. There's kind of, I would say it's part of the SoCal, you know, stoner surfer culture that permeates that part of jiu-jitsu that 10th Planet especially took advantage of, you know. And it was, you know, it's a cool way to like hang out with your friends, but also you're learning some self-defense. It wasn't like, you know, we're bowing in and everything's strict. The discipline and the strictness of it wasn't part of the selling package of Planet Jiu-Jitsu. So we get on the ground, we get good at it, you know, balls to the wall, and we're stripping all the frills, so to speak, to get down to it. You know what I mean? And, you know, there's pros and cons to that. There's pros and cons to that, too, because there was times where 10th Planet team competing, you jump into, like, high levels of IBJJF, and we're still kind of a young school, and we weren't having a lot of success because we're getting positionally outpointed. Never, you know, too much focus on the submission game and not enough focus on position. And it was like, you know, we got to kind of go back to the drawing board on some of that. And then you get some really good athletes like PJ Barge, Keith Krikorian, who have, like, this wrestling background before they came into jiu-jitsu. Oh, that's it. Here we go. That's it. Like, I'd love to see that. When I saw those guys come up on the scene, I'm like, oh, yes, thank God. Thank God, because it's not just like pulling guard and rubber guard and that's it. That's a cool aspect of it. There's some amazing, I mean, you look at Ben Eddie's rubber guard. He evolved it to a whole nother level. He's strong as fuck in those positions, but he knows how to do takedowns and stuff now, you know what I mean? He's going to sit on his laurels. The best guys are going to keep expanding their game. And it just makes it so interesting to watch and want to root for, you know?
I liken it to like the recent evolution of like wrestling up, you know what I mean? Which really nobody was ever talking about as far as I know. And then all of a sudden it's like,
nobody was pulling guard. Right? And now when pulling guard became more of like acceptable, oh, here's this wrestle up aspect. But it's all about like gaming the ADCC rules. 100%. Because you had the sub only portion, then you had the points portion, and that became part of the little exploits that people started to recognize. Where's the cheat code at? Oh, well, this little wrestle up is kind of a cheat code.
Because I find like, you know, you might get shut down if the person's standing tall above you and you don't have the grips of a gi to kind of pull them down and everything. So then, but they're standing upright and they're really close to you. So all of a sudden that single, that double is accessible. So it's crazy how it just keeps evolving. But so what brought you to Pasadena, and how'd you end up opening or like leading 10th Planet Pasadena? So
it was like early 2017 or end of 2016 when I decided I want to open the school. And Pasadena was pretty much the last quadrant of Los Angeles that didn't have a 10th Planet affiliate. So I'd been eyeing it for a while and talking to Eddie, like, I think I want to open a school there, and then that'll work within the parameters of the 10th Planet affiliation, having a 10-mile circumference or radius between them, so we're not oversaturating the market between 10th Planet schools, and every school owner has accessibility to like their own market, and that kind of fairness. So it was kind of like the last part of the territory of Los Angeles. So partnered up with Eric Ramey at the time, who was, a Danaher blue belt who had become a 10th Planet black belt. He had already had that blue basements from Henzo's experience, and then infused with a lot of the 10th Planet stuff. And so with my style being, like bread and butter 10th Planet stuff, and MMA and his style coming together, made a lot of good students, off the bat. Our first 5 years together was really awesome in that respect. And then, relationships change as they do. He opened up his own school in Thousand Oaks, and we're still here. But everything that we learned along the way, super important, super grateful that we were able to, get our shit together, pull the trigger, make it happen, learn from it, and influence, a new generation of grapplers, and having in-house tournaments here, being able to do stuff like give back to the community. That I know when I was a hungry young blue belt, I didn't have much money or anything. Like I can compete here for $40. Hell yeah, like 3 or 4 matches, and they're gonna take care of me. They're not just like feeding me to the dogs. You know what I mean? Like, there's people with experience, gearing it for you so they can get the most out of it. That's important for me. I love being able to like give back in that way.
And it shows like there was King of Subs here, right? Again, shout out Coach Drew. A while ago now, I think it was August or something like that. Whenever it happened, and you could tell that you guys were, like you were at the commentator table with me for a second, and then one of your team. We're competing, like, I gotta run coach. I gotta yell at him. And I think
squeeze.
Was it your wife? I think that is also coaching, and you could hear her like crystal clear across the room. I don't remember the instruction per se, but say shoot the double or whatever. It was loud and clear. You could cut right across the room.
I mean, and our she's got that competition experience from EBIs, from Quintet that they did in Tokyo. I was in her corner for a lot of those matches. And watching her come, she's first degree black belt under Eddie now. And she, the same kind of thing. She sees herself in that competitor, and as a coach, she wants to give them the best possible thing. So when she's yelling and passionate, we're that's our video game character. We're trying to maneuver, while they're there, and we're when they get taken down, we're feeling it too. We're like spasming through it, and when they get the win, we get the win. We all go through it. So having that close relationship. When you're in the moment fighting together, for the student, for the competitor. I know when I was always there looking back at my corner and seeing them, locked in with me too, that gave me the hope. Like, if I was running out of hope, everybody does at some point. You just into the source. You look up and they're looking at you like instructions forward. You're just like, all right, back in. You know 100%. What I mean? That's crucial. Yeah.
You imagine if you look back and they're on their phones, they're just like not even. Man, I don't think that's ever happened in history. Anybody who cares enough to be there.
Right. Imagine, like, you're a coach. Unless they're just not listening to you at all. You're just like, lost cause.
It's that too. It's possible.
You deserve this loss. There's coaches like that.
Oh, probably, yeah. But so you guys then you weathered the pandemic here, and more recently these crazy ass fires
and
that
were
the
firestorm that hit us, the Eaton fire.
I'd be remiss
Altadena,
not to bring it up. And you can see it like driving up here, like there's literally vestiges of buildings, and just like obviously the city has done a lot to clean it up, but it's still like
lots of empty lots.
How did you guys navigate that? And like
it's kind of the same strategy we had, for COVID. We leaned on the loyalty of our students. Well, first, we had to take care, like, it was just like an emergency. So like people literally did not have a house to be in. So I was getting GoFundMe's coming in from different 10th Planet schools that I was able to hand people that got affected, just hand them an envelope with money, like this, just to get through the next week or two. You know what I mean? That's like the first part of it, and then offering like, well, I don't even know when we can reopen. It's safe to, and then so what do? We do 50% off memberships. Per delay what you can here, have some. Luckily, the 10 Planet Network was there to help us from all over the world, really. But especially the other instructors that I've known over the years,
of course,
super helpful in that respect. So and that help us cover at least half the rent from 1 month to the next, while students are only paying 50%. And it's just about keeping that retention, keeping that loyalty going, and our students helping us survive during those times. The numbers dwindle down to like 50%, and you're just barely breaking even. I have to make some sacrifices in my own, personal income and stuff like that. But that's the up and down of business. Like I don't want to say it's fun, but it's not like something I didn't expect could happen.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Fair enough. Yeah.
So and being like pragmatic as a businessman, you have certain like things set up for the what ifs.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty huge what if.
Holy crap.
But you just kind of dig through it, one day at a time. You use all the experience from jiu-jitsu, your survivability and your ability to pivot to a new problem and be patient enough to find the path of least resistance and find the solution that works for you. With what I have, I don't have $1 million to throw at this problem.
No, exactly.
But I do have 100 hours. Between in this next month that I can attribute to figuring this out. So,
Nice.
You work with what you got, and we've been lucky enough to have some awesome, amazing, loyal students that have helped us maintain. And then we were open, man, as soon as I was legally and safe and able to remediate. And I was like on top of people, like, come on, get in. People want to lag, and they're like, no, I need to open this gym yesterday, And so, between all that, we were able to get back open, and by mid-February, we were all, doing classes again.
That's wild, man. Yeah. And somehow the building was not impacted directly by flames.
Just lucky. There was I think a couple of flames made it to the roof, but it didn't catch too much.
Yeah.
Literally, 100 yards that direction, the whole Bank of America building was completely engulfed. And once I saw that on the news, I'm like, oh, this place is toast. There's no way it's going to survive if that building's gone. And just enough space in the parking lot and a little bit of divine intervention, and we're just lucky.
There is a church not far away. Maybe some of that divine energy came over.
But then you see, east, west, north, south, almost every other structure around us was burnt down to the ground, so it really was a miracle. And in that respect, in that sense, I had to be like, well, why did this happen to me? I'm lucky enough to have this building, so we're gonna be a little hub for the community. And we had all kinds of supplies, donations from other 10 Planets and other schools helping out, and then handing stuff out to community members and clothing, food, the supplies, baby stuff, all that stuff, and just making sure everybody had access to stuff, and doing what we could, given the moment, to rise up and make sure we could be a valuable resource for people.
That's awesome, man. It was very, very reassuring to see everybody literally that I'd know or that I would see even online coming together. All of a sudden, we got issues we got to work through as a city, as a community, as a country, right? I'm myself in my transplant, so I also felt like, what can I do? But then all of a sudden, everybody's working together to help one person, the other person. We had a little no-gi open mat that turned into a clothing drive. You know what I mean? And it was. It was just really, really nice, the humanity that comes out.
It's a great reminder of the humanity that some of the worst times can bring out the best in people.
I just wish we didn't need a fire to have it, you know what I mean? We could just be that human all the time.
Sure. And some people are. I think for the most part, jiu-jitsu schools are one of those things. For me, I'm not overly religious. I grew up, I was raised Catholic, but I was pretty much like an atheist or agnostic from 12 on. And for me, the jiu-jitsu school, the academy, fulfills that role for me. It gives me that spiritual quintessence that I require from being around people and community. A lot of people go to church for that. The discipline, the righteous, thoughts, and the philosophical advice that goes on in there. A lot of that happens here. Just the conversations between parents, between students, between between
100%,
staff. It's the same for me. It fills that hole for me.
Yeah.
So
likewise, actually.
Yeah. So I'm always grateful for having the opportunity to be part of something that that's not necessarily like held to some ancient standard.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I can't help but think back to what you said earlier, like the pressure testing on a regular basis, right? So like, in essence, you're pressure testing the technique, but you're also, pressure testing the relationships between people on a regular basis. So,
That's a good insight there. Pressure testing the relationships between people.
And it's at the end of the day, like, I forget who it was. I think it was Bruno Fernandez in Montreal. It was like, you can be a jerk, but you're gonna it's gonna be really unenjoyable for you, right? And people aren't gonna open up to you. So if you you want to get more out of jiu-jitsu, you kind of do need to open up a little bit. And
I was even thinking when you said the places being kind of like almost like spark plugs for community and stuff. I was thinking like Henzo Gracie when I first met him, and the kind of exuberance in his smile greets you and shakes your hand.
That's the personality right there.
Yeah, but just so friendly and warm. He came out to like the 10-year anniversary for 10th Planet.
Oh, nice.
Way back in the day. He showed up, and he was just so, and I was like, man, that is a guy who's, been through it. He's fought it. He runs a school. He understands, and he just carries this energy forward.
Yeah.
And I took a note of that. I'm like, I gotta, if I'm ever in that kind of position again, I want to make sure I'm putting that kind of energy forward to be more receptive to people, or at least try to. It's always a work in progress, but I mean, it's good. It's a good standard to try to live up to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So 10th Planet Pasadena. Tell me a little bit about the school, where it's located, how we find you. How do we train here and learn directly from the man himself?
So there's a special ayahuasca meeting that says, you got to endure that, and if you can survive, then you wake up in your new life. No, we're located in Altadena, which is just north of Pasadena, and 2333 North Lake Avenue. We're located next to this Chase Bank we share the building with. And you can look us up on Instagram, Facebook, 10th Planet Pasadena.com, our website. We have all our information there as far as schedule, bios on the instructors, membership prices. Everything is upfront. I don't force you to come here and sign up and then hide the details of what it is. Everything's upfront.
Nice.
For me, I look at it like I put so much quality into the instruction and my passion for what I'm teaching students here. I know it's worth it.
Nice.
I know it's more than worth it, to be honest. You know what I mean? I know the instructors here are producing selling some really good jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, I have all the confidence in the world, post the prices up front, and people that will understand and appreciate what you're getting out of it will gravitate toward that. Good training ain't cheap, and cheap training ain't good.
That's true.
So having all that stuff transparent and upfront, for me, it just alleviates one aspect of I never wanted to go into a business for seeking how do I make a profit out of every corner. You know what I mean? Of course, yes, you got to stay in the green and there's certain things you got to do. But for me, it's always the quality of the school and the students first.
Yeah.
That's number one. If that's suffering just to make money, then the balance is off and you should be doing something else. You just want to go do stocks or something else. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
If you can do both and be successful at it, that's the winning.
Nice.
That's the winning combo. And you can just have fun doing what you're doing. Then it's like you never work a day in your life, right? Because you're loving when you're showing up to do it. So that's what I'm always kind of striving towards. And even with the big setbacks, the COVIDs, the fires, the this and that, man, it's so humbling to still be able to have that and walk in and see, smiles on the kids' faces from training, seeing somebody win their first competition, and the way the pep in their step changes when they walk through the gym now. You know what I mean? They just got a little more confidence, a little more, a little better sense of themselves, a little more knowledge of self. And I was, instrumental in helping create that for them.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. I like being able to look back on that and be like, I did a little something a little something good in the world, you know?
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. Well, you got your yet another testimonial right here. I can attest. It's a great vibe, great energy, great class, technical, and enjoyable. You know what I mean? I obviously felt at home immediately as much as you can in somebody, like a school that you visit for the first time.
It's hard to learn stuff when you feel like you're not having fun. I definitely made sure to carry that over from Eddie. It's like, throw a couple of jokes in there, have some lighthearted relationships while you're teaching. Throw a little, real life scenario you remember for when you do this technique in competition, and keep it light because the training itself and the learning it is hard already. And sometimes it's boring. Some of the techniques and some of the things, but as an instructor, I know it's how important it is for you to get this thing down. Because once you can get this down, you'll be able to troubleshoot a lot of similar scenarios. So that becomes the fun part for me. I got to figure out, how do I make this fun?
Nice.
How do I make this situation a little lighter? How do I make a drill or a fun game out of this that's still going to get the kind of work that I'm looking for without making it, all right, do this 5 times, see you in an hour.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. Man, Professor, thank you so much for taking the time, brother.
Pleasure, man. Thank you for having the conversation. It was awesome. We'll just get long. We can talk for 3 more hours.
Man, yeah, exactly. I mean, leave it up to us, Talk Jiu-Jitsu all day.
For sure. I love being able to share. Again, this is what I've committed my life to, and here it's going to be we've celebrated our 8-year anniversary just last month. So, I've put a big chunk, almost a decade of my life into just this school and raising it. So, to be able to talk about it and share, where my passion came from and what it's continuing to do and how I view it, that's fun. It's fulfilling.
That's amazing. Yeah,
and hopefully it inspires somebody who, brown belt is about to open a school in a year or two. For that black belt, or that black belt who's kind of on the fence about whether or not they should. If you love what you're doing, commit to it, do it. You can't, even if you fail horribly, it's only going to be so bad unless you're a complete idiot and you don't know how to prepare, right? But you should have learned how to do that. Like, do a couple of competitions and understand what it's like. Jiu-Jitsu will teach you how to be successful instead. Did you go to a competition unprepared? And did you gas? And did you get tapped out? And then, you know what I mean? Then and did you make the adjustments from there? Well, all that kind of mentality, put that into your business. Put that into your relationship with your family and your friends, Jiu-Jitsu is still constantly teaching me things all the time about myself. So grateful to be on the ride.
Oh man, wise words, brother. Yeah, absolutely. It's on one hell of a ride too, right?
Yeah.